Welcome Primary 5, Miss Hiba Ahmed is with you. Today we will complete our explanation to concept 2 and we will take lesson 3 and 4 now. Here reason 4, some living organisms obtain their needed energy by eating other living organisms. Which living organism they talk about now? Yes, consumers, very good. Why they do this? Because they cannot make their own food, so they depend on other living organisms to get their food. So when he asked me why there are other living organisms that need other living organisms to get what they eat, we said because they cannot make their own food directly from the sun. We take in the last session the food chain. Do you remember what is the food chain? Food chain is a model that show us one liner of feeding and the flow of energy. Now we will talk about something different, which is called food web. Which is called what? Food web. As you can see, that's a food chain. It shows us just one liner of food. The deer eats the plant or the tree, and the lion eats the deer. That's a one-liner of food relation. But here in this food web, it shows us many liners or a huge number of liners of food between living organisms. For example, when the fly feed on plants, the birds eat the fly. And how it eat the birds? The eagle eat the bird. Not only the eagle eat the bird, but the food web show us the eagle can eat the bird, the snake, the fox, and also the rabbit. So it show us many liners of food or many food relations between living organisms. So food chain show us one liner or one food relationship between living organisms, but food web show us many food relationship between living organisms and many energy flows between living organisms. So, food web, it's a model that shows many different feeding relationships among living organisms, or it's a model that describes energy flow and feeding interaction between living organisms in an ecosystem. And we also can say that the energy and the food web, it's a group of food energies. Sorry, a group of food chains. So food web, it's a group of food chain. As we can see, here the fly eat the bird, and the bird eat the fly. Sorry, the fly eat the plant, and the bird eat the fly, and the eagle eats the bird. So it's a food chain, right? And when the insect eat the plant, and the frog eats the insect, and the snake eat the frog, and the eagle eats the snake, it's another food chain. So food web, it's a group of food chains. If one organism in the ecosystem disappear, the food web in the ecosystem will affect it. Yes, because every animal feed on another animal or feed on another living organism. If this animal disappear, the living organisms will affect it in the ecosystem. Let's go to lesson 5. Okay, food webs show different organisms in an ecosystem and connect to allow the energy to pass between them to survive. One more time, food web show us different organisms in the ecosystem and allow us to know the food relations between them to survive. As we said before, producers are eaten by some consumers. Some consumers eaten by other consumers. Some consumers may eat the same producers or prey. Okay, as we said before, the eagle and the owl, they can eat the same producers or the same prey. So eagle and owl, both of them can eat what? Can eat rabbits, can eat mice, can eat snakes. So they have common prey. Okay, so here, as we said before, the fox can eat the bird, right? Okay, And the fox also eat the what? Eat the rabbit. And the owl eat the mouse. Okay, so the food web show us many food relations between living organisms and energy flows. So the food chain allow us to know one liner of food relationship between living organisms. But the food web, it contains many liners of food between living organisms, or we can say that it's a group of food chain. Food web, it's a group of food chain. So it's better to use food web or food chain? Yes, very good, food web. Why? Because food web allow us to know many food chains out. The food web, it's a group of food chains and allow us to know different or many food relationship between living organisms. Do you remember the decomposers? Yes, they are the living organisms that decompose the dead bodies and returning back the nutrients to the soil. Decomposers make which process? Super, decomposition process. Do you remember the examples of decomposers? Very good. Bacteria, fungi, worms, and millipedes. We have here two types of fungi which is called, repeat after me, bread mold fungus, mushroom fungus, bread mold fungus, mushroom fungus. Do you know if you let the bread out of the refrigerator for days, what will happen? There is a green layer will form on it, right? This green layer, it's the bread mold fungus. It's a decomposer. And you know the mushroom? You love to eat the mushroom? Yes, the mushroom is a decomposer and it's a type of fungi. So we have two types of fungi, which are bread mold fungus and mushroom fungus. Now we will talk about the decomposition process in detail. We must know that decomposition process happens in two steps. It started with living organisms called scavengers. Called what? Scavengers. Scavengers, they are the living organisms that feed on dead organisms and change their body into small pieces. One more time, decomposition process happens in two steps. Step number one is made by scavengers. Scavengers, they are living organisms that eat the dead bodies and break them down into smaller pieces. Second, the rule of the decomposers come. So the first step in the decomposition process is made by scavengers, but the second step in the decomposition process made by decomposers. The decomposers take the small pieces that scavengers produce and change it into nutrients and returning back to the soil to be able to use by another plant or another producers. Let's know the examples of scavengers. Scavengers, they are the living organisms that eat the dead bodies and change it into small pieces, right? Like, repeat after me, vultures, cockroaches, houseflies, crabs, hyenas, vulture, cockroaches, housefly, crabs, hyenas. All of them are called scavengers, and scavengers make the first step in the decomposition process. Let's go to the examples of decomposers. We talked about the example of decomposer before, bacteria, fungi, worms, and millipedes, you remember? And also the snails and slugs and earthworm. So the examples of decomposers, bacteria, fungi, earthworm, millipedes, snails, and slugs. And don't forget, we take two types of fungi, which is, yes, bread mold fungus and mushroom fungus. When the nutrients is consumed by the plant, the cycle continues as the consumer eats the producer, and when the consumer dies, the decomposer, turning back the nutrients or the chemical energy that consumer take from the producer one more time in the form in the nutrients to the soil. Then the producer take these nutrients and make what? Chemical energy. Then another consumer feed on the producers, and consumer die, and decomposer exchange its body into nutrients, and another producer take the nutrients, and so on. Waste and dead organisms. They are only way that people use to reduce their wastes materials and trash known as recycling. Do you know what is the recycling? We take the trash and we make a new substances that we can reuse them. So recycling meaning we use the trash. Take the trash and make a new substances that allow us to use them. So recycling process, people use waste materials and make new products instead of going in landfill. Decomposition process it's a natural recycling factory or natural recycling process. Why? Because decomposition process or decomposers feed on dead bodies and returning back the nutrients one more time to the soil. So we get rid of the dead bodies and we also take the nutrients from these bodies and returning back to the soil to be used by other producers. And we must know that decomposition process take place on land and also in water. Thank you for listening. Miss Hiba Ahmed was with you.